This is the session 2 of Primavera P6 Fundamental free webinar. In this session, we are going to talk about some menu according to our previous session, and then go for group and sort option, filter, Gantt chart, and bars, and then finish. We talked about Gantt chart and bars last night. That is extra for last night, but let's start. This is the project menu. Project menu is one of the most important menu in Primavera P6 because if you be a planner or a scheduler, you work with it too much. Because all of your activity resource assignment, WBS, assign baseline, maintain baseline, your expenses, WPS and docs, I would like to rename it Project Fundamental Information. Register with Project Menu. Also, you should register your threshold, issue, and risk in this menu. So that is the very important menu for Primavera P6 users. Let's go to the software and talk about it. This is our sample project for last night. This is the activity sheet. In this sheet, we can add, delete, cut, or copy and paste activity over here. This sheet enable us to do any change about our activity. If you want to add activity, you can use this. Let me to turn off the wizard. If you want to add activity, you can use this icon. You can add your activity, write your activity ID over here, activity name over here, duration and other setting by this sheet. Also, you can delete your activity, cut your activity, and paste it in another WBS and location. And also you can use copy and paste. When you want to paste your activity, software asks you for this question. If you want to all settings are same, you should use all these check marks. Then ask you for renumbering activity, and that's it. Okay, also you can use select. I push the control in order to select two activity in the same time, and use delete. Then software delete my activity. Status bars help you to know what happened with your software. And this is the resource assignment. If you use the resource in your project, then you can find your resource assignment over here. My others activity maybe do not have any resource. If I loaded the resource into them, then I can find the resource. Also, this tab only show me actual unit right now. So I only have actual unit for this activity and for these two activities. Let us to check it. A1010 and A1000. Resource assignment help you to find what is the resource loaded in your project. Also, you can use the calculate average over here, or you can use other spreadsheet field over here. Can use budget unit in order to know what is the each activity budget unit, or you can use customize in order to use it by cumulative data or time interval data. And what is the next is WBS. You can build your WBS project over here. If your project, each project have own hierarchy, so you should build it at the first and then rename it. For instance, the big project as a engineering, procurement, and construction or operation. These four parts of every big industrial project. And you can assign your activity over here. You cannot find my new WBS because I use this setting hide if empty. So if my WBS has no activity, it could be empty and my software do not present it to me. And what is assign baseline? Let me to start with maintain baseline. When you start your project and you give approval from your owner or client, then you receive the approval and you can set your project baseline. You need to save your project baseline over here. You can save a copy of your current project as a new baseline. It's I would like to rename it to the original baseline. And when you pass these steps and go through the project, and you maybe sometimes you need to update your baseline, you should the second wizard in order to convert your project with another project. Let me do what is how is work. If I use save button, you can find it. Software automatically save another copy of sample project for me and present it to me to the sample baseline 2. I restore it. When you restore the baseline of project, you can find it in your enterprise over here. You can use this field in order to complete your document information and use this to complete your description of document. Where is your file located? Public location or private location? assignment, and user-defined field. In one project, I store invoice file via these tools. That is helpful because you can find every time find the invoice file over here. Or for the distance for this tools is engineering document. And threshold. You can register your threshold over here. You can use the status WBS, your priority. You can assign your threshold to the WBS or activity over here and obtain your lower or upper threshold. Assign your responsible manager and select your tracking layout for this threshold. And these are the same. And if you want to obtain the start and to date for your threshold, you can use this dialog box. Also, you can set up your threshold issue over here. If your threshold become affected your project, you can register it. And also you can register issue over here. This is the issue. You can use the issue close, on hold, or open, because issue at the start is open, but maybe your issue become on hold or closed. Issue like threshold have a 5 type of priority, and issue may be related to the activities, upper level, lower level, actual value. If you can apply the resource to your issue, if your issue related to the resource. Also, if your issue related to an activity, you can use it. You can write some note about your issue, use define fields or other information over here. This is how you can register your issue in your project. Also, you can register your risk over here. This is the categories of your risk. Type of your risk is threat or opportunity. What is the risk owner? Your risk status. Exposed to start and to finish. And identified on, identify by. Identify on when or identify on by whom. What is the risk impact? You can register all probability over here, schedule over here, impact on cost over here, and you can score your risk. What activity assigned to this risk? And what is the description? Cause. What cause of your risk? Effect of your risk. And if you have extra note or other user-defined field, maybe you define in your project for your usage. And set default project. When you open two projects together, let me to open it first. And P6 need to know which of this project is become default. When you add some activity, add a resource, add everything, it's happen to which of the project. You can use your default project over here. That is all information about your project menu. Let us to continue with Enterprise Menu Bar. You can find a project enterprise for define your EPS over here, tracking your project, and use project portfolios over here. You can define our resource, include labor, non-labor, material over here, and setting these resources. Also, you can use rules, all rules, and OBS over here, resource code, project code, activity code, and user-defined fields over here. These are very important because you can sort and arrange your data by this information in a resource, in a project layout, or in an activity layout. Also, you can define the calendar and resource sheet over here. And when you have an activity step in your project, you can design your activity steps over here for your project. You can use the cost account in order to define your cost account over here, funding source. If you're faced with government and outsource company, you can use it. Resource curves. This is used when you have a special resource and you want to resource to be front load or back load. You can define it over here. I made an example with it. Let's continue with software. Okay. Enterprise. The first icon of Enterprise menu is project. When I open the project, I face it with this project. Or I can add my project over here. Enterprise project structure. Each company have a own enterprise project structure. You can build it according to your company. For instance, I made a live previous lesson, startup, P6, my webinar, or add some new enterprise without any name, or only I renamed the EPS name to the Enterprise. For myself, this is related to my Primavera lessons by Global Project Control. Most of company use something like this: baseline, active, what if. You can, when you add the enterprise, you can find it over here. If you want to use it in the upper section, you can use this tools in order to build and use it in a true hierarchy. I change it to the startup, or I can use another hierarchy for it. Tracking. Tracking is the good layout, provide you good information about your project. You can find out these WBS are empty, so you cannot find anything on it. My engineering WBS has a 2 activity, so you can find these 2 activities, and my sample plan has more activities. You can find the remaining unit over here. Also, you can use resource profile over here or over here. You can use the resource 1 or resource 2. Tracking provide you information based off your resource. Or you can pull down the shift and select all of your resource. If you use this filter, you face it with pull off resource. It is not good for you because you don't know what is the active resource for your project. You can find it with this cursor of mouse on your resource. Both of them have a cursor on it, on the icon. But if you filter by current project resource, you can find the better result for tracking information. Also, you can change the field. For instance, if I change it to the actual unit, I give another result over here. Or if I change it to the remaining, it is different. And also I can use customize in order to use remaining and budget units together in a 2 separate line. And what is project portfolio? You can build your project portfolio based off your company portfolio. For instance, now I active my global project control portfolio for you. If you want to add another project to this portfolio, you can use assign, and then all of my project open. Right now you cannot see my other project. Only I show you up to this portfolio. Overall lesson, made a portfolio for this. Remove this from my view. Let me to show you. When I come back to my enterprise, I close all of my project. You cannot find any portfolio. But if I go to all project, now all of my enterprise project structure appear over here. But let's to come back to the global project control. What is the resource? All of you familiar with resource. You can add a resource over here. When you add a resource, your filter will be changed to the all resources. You can use your hierarchy for your resource. Use the resource ID, resource name, employee ID, title, and other information if needful for you. If you want, you can assign the codes to your resource in order to sort and group them, or classification by other type of information. You can change the resource type. This is the icon of labor unit. If I change it to the non-labor, it would be changed. And if I change it to the material, it would be changed again. When you use material, you must select the measure of unit, because material has a measure of units. You can use your resource calendar over here. This is my tree of calendars. Also, I can use global calendar or shared resource calendar. And what is the default time of unit for my resource? Availability of my resource. Also, if your resource have a maximum unit per time, you can write it over here. Your resource effective date, your standard rate. Yesterday and this is your role pool. You can build your role pool over here. And if you have a limit for this role, you can add it. And this is the general information of your role. And organization breakdown structure, OBS. You can add another OBS. To your project. What is their responsibility and what is the general information? Can modify it. For instance, oil and gas utility. This is by energy OBS description. Also, you can, when you use your OBS, the responsibility completed by the OBS. If I use this OBS for my project, now if I check my OBS, responsibility for this project and WBS assigned to this OBS by software. And you can arrange your resource codes over here. If you push the modify, you can find the upper level of your resource code definition. If you want to add another, you can add or shift down, obtain your maximum length. Instance, I add sample code. I close it. Then I can use it. This is only have a 7 character. And you can use your code description over here. Some default information available in your software. You can use it. Also, you can use your project code in order to sort and organize your project code over here. You can define another project code. Another category of project code over here, or another project code for technology rating over here. Build a hierarchy for it. Or activity code. Activity code related to, let me to define it. I build engineering for instance, it is by detail. Phase. Oh, this is my furnace package. I like to add another activity, basic. Basic. I like to show you how to activity code R works in our project. I go to codes and assign, go to project. I can find my activity code to this project. I used to the third one, the first one to the basic, assign the remaining to the detail, and these two to the furnace package procurement. If I go to group and sort and use let me to check it. Procurement. 𝐸𝐮𝐬. Okay. This is another sort of project with activity code. The level 1 is for procurement and the level 2 for engineering. If you want to assign more activity code, you can use assign. In project, these activity codes specific to your project, these activity code specific to your EPS, and these activity code are global. Information. I have not any activity code related to my EPS, but I have many global information. I can assign it to this project. But when you need user-defined field, you can build it in Primavera P6 software. But be careful, because first of all, you should decide what is the main criteria of your user-defined field. Because if you add your user-defined field in activity, you cannot access it when you go to your issues or your project or your resource. So be careful about your field at the first. I add field to my activities, rename it sample PDF. When you use it, when you create it, the software immediately sorts it based off your spelling, and you can select the exact field. What is your field type? Cost, date, indicator, used for KPI, integer, number, start date, or text. This is how you can use your you can create your user-defined field. and I made this sample UDF to my activity. If I want to find it, I can use find, or I can use user defined field and looking for it. The easier way is use Control F and this is my user defined field. But calendar. You have three types of calendar in your software. The first one is global calendar, second one is resource calendar, and the third one is your project calendar. All of this calendar is useful and important for you. You can add your calendar to your project, but first you should select the calendar to be baseline of your new calendar. If I add, I can modify it. If you want to use the work week, you can select it and obtain how each hour of per day of your calendar. Or use this for your time period. If you want to go to detail, you can use detail in order to be work hour. Change your calendar based off your time. If I change it, it's become white. Why? Because it's exception on my calendar. If you want to change something globally, you can select you can go to your total work, select your work week and change it to the 0. Then all of your day become non-work. That is all information about build a calendar of, or if you want to use set it up based off your detailed calendar for each 30 minutes. Use this detail, work week, and non-hour, non-working. At the end, you should rename your calendar. Sample calendar. Global calendar is shared between you and colleagues. Project calendars only available for the project users, but resource calendar are shared between resource managers. And if you want to use resource sheet or obtain the resource or add a resource, add a shift, you can use it. Or modify it, 3 shift, start, and duration. And what is activity step templates? If you use it, you can let me to build sample. This is our sample for webinar. I want to define step 1, issue for approve, and step 2, approve for construction. This is the weight of 7 and this is the weight of 3. And you can add some other information for the users to know how they can use these activities. Or this sample webinar steps has 2 steps, but my previous sample project has 4 steps, and my system design checklist has 6 steps. This is based on your project. You can add the steps or remove these steps. You can modify it. This is useful for engineering phase of project. And cost account. The cost account, you can create the cost account over here. Cost account name. Add some information about our cost account. As you see, when we add the expense, we should select the cost account. You can find my new cost account for sample webinar over here. If you need some more information, use this help. And resource curve. This is the software resource curve. If I want to modify it, I can use modify by but. If I want to build my own curve, I want to build my own curve based on bell shape. So I use this. It's created on global sample curve. I use modify. I can put my data over here. And you can find what is the total percent. This is my curve. You can use portrait. And push OK button. To my resource. My resource curve. could be changed. I can assign it to my resource. The distribution of this resource is totally different with this. Okay, external application. All of you familiar with schedule bottom? But schedule bottom have an option. You can read each of these if you want to leave a resource during your scheduling, recalculate assignment cost after scheduling, or use each of these resources. You can use this check mark. If you want to schedule by return logic, remain duration is not scheduled until the predecessor are completed, or progress override your network logic in this setup, in this option. Your network logic ignore the activity and can progress without delay, and actual date use a step forward and backward to calculate, and other option you can find over here. These are useful when you have a big project. This is, I want to change it to the progress override. If I have an activity with actual information, when I use progress override, something happen. But because I have to complete the activity, nothing happened over here. Also, the schedule log is very important for you. For instance, I have 3 activity without predecessor and 3 activity without successor. This is very useful information about your logic health. I mean schedule logic health. And level resource, you can level your resource by this software automatically. You can use your priority for leveling and use the level. If you level your resource, your project change completely based on your resource curve. This is my schedule. This is my over allocation is here. And if I use level resource, my resource curve are changed based on the relationship and other information. And what is the apply actual? When you want to know which of your activities could be actual. For instance, my data date is 28th of September. Let me to change my time scale first. If I use apply actual up to 31 of October here, and I use apply. Wait for software. Your iSchedule percent completed change 100% because it's completed, 20% because only 20% of completed, 100, and if I want to update progress, for only this activity, first I should select it, then I go to apply update progress and select activity only onto 31 of October. This activity updated without changing my data date. If I use a schedule button, everything change. But can use this activity updated. If you assign the cost to your resource and you have some change in your resource and you need to synchronize your resource cost every time you change your resource price, you should use this in order to recalculate your resource cost. To show you how it's work. Show labor cost. My resource, labor. Now, if I recalculate it, you can find actual labor cost calculated. Store period performance will be discussed later. For a store, your project based off your period global change. When you want to change something globally in your project, activity or resource assignment or in your project expenses. First, you can use it. For instance, I want to change all of my activity name F to the engineering department. So I should write it when my activity name equal to F, then change my activity name to engineering. Then you push the change button. Software showed your result before you apply. Old value, new value. For activity ID, this is your activity ID, this is your activity field, name, old value, new value. If I commit the change, I don't like to save the logs. My activity name for F changed. This change globally happened to my project. So this tool's name global change. You can use global change to your activity, to your project expense, or your activity resource assignment globally. If you register your threshold, you can monitor it. I'm not register any threshold. Or if you want to navigate your issue, I register two issue. This issue related to my WBS. This is the activity of issue. This is the issue detail. You can navigate your issue. Visualizer discuss later. Report. You can use your report over here. We have many type of report. You can create the report. This is the report wizard. If you want to use the new report wizard, you can use this dialog box. If you want to report something in your project related to your activity, activity code, activity steps, or other field, first you should select it and then select your column wants to be reported. The most usage report in P6 is based on activity or WBS report, and set up the columns. Units, summary, budget, or other field. You can select it. Select the group and sort for it. And then use a filter if you want to, for instance, add a filter for WBS path. Your WBS path is only related to engineering. Then you want to use the time scale, project start to project finish. You can use year, quarter, month, week, day, shift, hour, or financial period. All of information are available over here. You can only select it. Date format based on calendar or fiscal, or what you want. And what is the time interval field? This is the distribution of your resource and cost in cumulative or time interval. Actual labor unit or cumulative actual non-labor unit. If I run the report, use the preview, you can find it over here. Or if you want to open it in Excel directly, you can use this field. You can save your report and use it in the future, or modify it, or use export in order to share it with your colleagues, or import your colleagues' report. cut, copy, and paste your report in your layout, filter by our report or current project report, or use group and sort by. If you want to use group of your report, you can use it. Sample P6 tutorial, I add another things to this. Use a hierarchy and then close it. This is the report group. This is my two hierarchy of report. And if you want to publish your project on a website, on activity layout, on tracing layout, you can use them. And what is the top-down estimation? For instance, you know some of your activity totally you know the value of your activity totally, but you want to use top-down estimation. You can estimate your labor or non-labor, or you can use the resource. My resource allocation to my sample plan is about 1,000 units. If I apply adjust without any tolerance, I apply it. My resource R3, R2 practice become totally changed. Thousand unit added to these resources. Let me to show you another example for non-labor unit, sample plan, engineering is better. For engineering, my resource is practice. My estimation unit is 200. If I push apply, 200 estimated for this. But why it's not allocated to this activity? Because it's 100 activity has 100% progress. So it finished and could not be loaded any resource to the finished activity. That is all about Tools menu and what is the group and sort. If you want to show your total, you can use this check mark. You can set up, sort all of your information based off this field. Most of users at the first use the WBS, but when assign their activity code, use activity code. If I want to order group based on my only engineering activity code, this is my engineering group and sorting. If I want to shrink vertical grouping bound, I use this check mark to shrink it. If you don't want to see the empty WBS or empty side, if I use WBS, if I check it, these three are not shown. And sort alphabetically, hide if empty, sort, use the title, WBS title, remove ID, only show the name without title. Also, you can change the font and color over here. Or set up your customization. Also, if you want to orderize your WBS based on activity ID or something else, you can use this field, acceding or deciding. If you remove it, also you have a sort. Do not worry about it. And what is the next? Is filter. Filter is very important module of software and mostly used by P6 users. You can use filter. This is the general and default filter of software. For instance, the popular filter is critical, in progress, longest path, critical path, both of them, milestones, and others. Or you can, if you use all the selector filter, software used for all these conditions, but if you use any of these conditions, the result is changed. But if you like to use your own filter, you can use a new, for instance, activity start, greater than 31 of October. This is my filter. I have no activity start after October. I use it for September. Maybe I need to check it first. No, we have. Data date. This is the greater activity start with my data date. And this is how the filter works. You can use your filter with, you can add many conditions. For instance, if you use a start greater than 2 weeks and add some other information to your project, it could be look at plan for your project. But if you want to make your filter globally, you can rename your filter at the first and then push the global. Your filter location will be changed. Your global filter in access of your all users in your network. And you can use all of your network can modify it. This is the solution for share your filter with your colleagues in your network. Also, if you like to add some additional information in your filter, you can use any and then add some condition. This is like combination of all of the following and any of the following. You can use the hierarchy for your filter too, like this. Okay, we discussed about Gantt chart last night. Okay, the second webinar finished.